Imagine walking into your garage, pressing one button, and waking up a naturally aspirated Lamborghini V10 directly behind your head. No turbochargers muffling the response. No hybrid system quietly helping in the background. Just 10 cylinders reminding the entire neighborhood that apparently sleeping until 8 a.m. was optional. For more than a decade, the Lamborghini Huracán represented one of the most accessible ways to enter the world of true Italian supercars. It was brutally fast, dramatic enough to make strangers pull out their phones, and surprisingly usable compared with Lamborghinis from previous generations. But now that the Huracán era has ended and used examples are everywhere, from exotic dealerships in Miami to collections in California, there is a much more interesting question. Is owning one actually a dream? Or does the fantasy disappear the moment you become responsible for the bills? Today on Beach Car, we are counting down 7 reasons the Lamborghini Huracán can be both one of the greatest cars you will ever own and one of the most complicated financial relationships you will ever enter. Before we start, tell us in the comments, if someone handed you the keys to a Huracán today, but you had to pay every expense yourself, would you keep it? Remember, the Lamborghini is free. The Lamborghini lifestyle definitely is not. Number 7 is the attention. This sounds obvious until you actually imagine living with it. A Huracán does not blend into traffic. You are driving something lower than most sedans, wider than many ordinary cars, filled with sharp lines, massive air openings, and the visual subtlety of a fighter jet parked outside a Starbucks. Pull into a gas station and people notice. Park outside a restaurant and someone is probably photographing it before you have even closed the door. Drive through a small town and suddenly you have become the local event for the afternoon. For many owners, this is part of the dream. A Lamborghini is not supposed to be invisible. Ferruccio Lamborghini did not create one of the world's most dramatic automotive brands, so you could quietly disappear behind a beige crossover. But constant attention has another side. You cannot always park wherever you want without thinking about door dings, curbs, tight spaces, cameras, curious strangers, or the person who believes leaning against someone else's supercar is somehow acceptable behavior. Leaving a Huracán in a crowded parking lot can feel less like parking a car and more like leaving a newborn child next to a shopping cart return. You start choosing spaces based on geometry rather than convenience. That beautiful front end also sits extremely close to the ground, meaning steep driveways and poorly designed entrances suddenly become tactical problems. Some versions offer a front lifting system to make those situations easier. And if you are shopping used, that is one feature you may appreciate every time an American parking garage presents you with a ramp designed by someone who clearly hates sports cars. Number 6 is that extraordinary 5.2-liter, naturally aspirated V10. This engine is arguably the main reason the Huracán deserves to be remembered. When the original Huracán LP 610-4 arrived, its V10 produced 610 CV and sent power through Lamborghini's 7-speed dual-clutch transmission and all-wheel drive system. Later versions pushed the formula further. The Huracán Evio offered 640 CV, while cars such as the STO and Technica turned the same basic engine architecture into increasingly focused interpretations of the V10 experience. No turbochargers are needed to create the drama. The engine responds sharply, builds power as the revs rise, and produces the kind of mechanical soundtrack that has become increasingly rare as performance cars move towards smaller turbo engines and hybrid assistance. That is the dream part. The nightmare is realizing that you are responsible for maintaining an exotic V10 capable of spinning to extremely high engine speeds. The Huracán has a reputation for being relatively robust by exotic car standards. But reliable Lamborghini and cheap Lamborghini are two completely different sentences. Proper servicing matters. Correct fluids matter. Service history matters. Cooling systems, ignition components, sensors, transmission maintenance, brakes, suspension, and every other system still belong to a 6-figure supercar. Lamborghini itself offers dedicated maintenance programs and continues supporting Huracán models through its official service network. That should tell you something. This is a car designed to be maintained properly, not a machine where you skip 3 oil changes because the warning light eventually disappeared. Number 5 is the transmission and drivetrain, because Lamborghini somehow managed to make the Huracán far easier to drive than its appearance suggests. Earlier exotic cars could be intimidating at low speed. Heavy controls, difficult transmissions, poor visibility, and unpredictable behavior meant every journey demanded concentration. The Huracán's 7-speed Lamborghini Doppia Frizione dual-clutch gearbox changed that experience dramatically. Put the car in automatic mode, drive carefully, and it can handle ordinary traffic with surprising civility. Pull the paddles and select a more aggressive drive mode, however, and the personality changes completely. Many Huracán variants also use all-wheel drive, giving the car enormous traction when accelerating. It is one of the reasons a Huracán can deploy its power so effectively without constantly behaving like it wants to negotiate ownership of the nearest tree. Rear-wheel drive versions offer a different experience, prioritizing greater driver involvement and a more traditional balance. But the all-wheel drive cars show how much engineering Lamborghini invested in making huge performance accessible. The problem is complexity. A 7-speed dual-clutch transmission, electronically controlled drivetrain, advanced stability systems, adaptive components, and sophisticated software are fantastic when everything communicates perfectly. If a problem appears, this is not a 2004 Civic where your neighbor comes over with a socket set and a YouTube video. Diagnosis matters. Specialist knowledge matters. Parts matter. And when a dashboard warning appears in a Lamborghini, your first thought probably will not be, "I bet that's going to cost $47. Number 4 is the tires and brakes, the components standing between supercar performance and an extremely embarrassing insurance conversation. Lamborghini engineered the Huracán around serious high-speed capability, so tires are not something you buy by walking into a discount shop and asking what is on sale. Different Huracán versions use high-performance tire specifications matched to their intended character, and specialized models received increasingly serious rubber. Tire age is also important on low-mileage exotic cars. A 10-year-old Huracán with very few miles may sound perfect until you discover that the tires are old enough to remember when people still bought DVDs. Then there are the brakes. Carbon ceramic systems are available or standard depending on the Huracán version, offering incredible resistance to heat and enormous stopping capability. They are exactly what you want when a car can accelerate from normal highway speeds to "this conversation is now between you and your lawyer" with frightening ease. But carbon ceramic components are expensive, which means anyone buying a used Huracán should care about brake condition, not just paint color and mileage. And that brings us to the most important rule of exotic car shopping. Mileage tells you only part of the story. A Huracán with 8,000 miles and poor maintenance may be a worse purchase than one with 25,000 miles. Complete records, regular servicing, recent tires, healthy brakes, and an owner who actually allowed the engine to reach operating temperature before treating every entrance ramp like qualifying at Monza. These cars need inspection by someone who understands them. We still have 3 reasons left, and this is where Huracán ownership becomes even more interesting. We need to talk about depreciation, insurance, the incredible number of Huracán versions Lamborghini created, and the one characteristic that may make all the inconvenience worth it. Because this car's greatest feature cannot be measured only in horsepower, acceleration, or resale value. It is the reason people spend years dreaming about one before they can even afford the key. Number 3 is depreciation. And this is where the Huracán becomes fascinating, because not every version behaves the same way. Early standard cars were produced in larger numbers and can generally be found for less than rare track-focused variants. But special versions such as the Performante, STO, Technica, and certain limited configurations tend to attract more enthusiast attention because they represent more extreme interpretations of the platform. That does not mean every Huracán is automatically an investment. Buying a supercar because you assume it will appreciate is a very expensive way to discover that markets have moods too. Mileage, specification, service history, accident history, color combination, ownership count, and even whether the car has been modified can significantly affect resale value. Number 2 is insurance and everyday ownership. This is the part nobody posts in the glamorous delivery video. Depending on your age, location, driving history, coverage, and insurer, protecting a Huracán can cost dramatically more than insuring a normal performance car. Then you have registration, premium fuel, tires, detailing, storage, potential transport, and the small problem that almost every routine expense suddenly has the word exotic attached to it. Even washing the car becomes more complicated if you care about the paint, carbon fiber, wheels, and low bodywork. A cheap automatic car wash? Sure, if your goal is to make every Lamborghini owner within 50 miles feel physical pain. But the Huracán is surprisingly usable. Visibility is not perfect, but it is manageable. The cabin is compact without being completely impractical. The dual-clutch transmission handles traffic well, and the car can cover real highway miles without punishing the driver. You can take it to dinner, drive it on a weekend trip, or use it more frequently than people expect. That usability is one reason the Huracán became such an important Lamborghini. It gave owners the theater of an exotic car without requiring them to suffer constantly for the privilege. And number 1 is the experience. This is the reason people tolerate everything else. The naturally aspirated V10 sits behind you. The seating position is low. The windshield frames the road like a cockpit. Pull a paddle, accelerate, and the engine climbs through the rev range with a sound that modern turbocharged and electrified cars struggle to reproduce. Even at normal speeds, the Huracán feels special because every control, every vibration, and every view reminds you that you are not driving ordinary transportation. That is the answer to the original question. Is the Lamborghini Huracán a dream car or a nightmare? It can be both. If you buy the cheapest example available, ignore service history, underestimate insurance, delay maintenance, and treat consumables like they cost the same as those on a family sedan, the nightmare can arrive surprisingly quickly. But if you buy carefully, understand the costs, inspect the car properly, and budget for ownership instead of only the purchase price, the Huracán can be one of the most rewarding exotic cars of its generation. It combines outrageous design, a legendary naturally aspirated V10, serious performance, modern usability, and enough personality to turn an ordinary drive into an event. And now I want to know your answer. If you had to choose one Huracán, would you take the original LP 610-4, the rear-wheel drive version, the Performante, the STO, or the Technica? Tell us in the comments and subscribe to VH Car for more countdowns, ownership stories, engineering breakdowns, and the real details behind the cars people spend years dreaming about.